With income inequality reaching dangerous levels, the SEC finally decided that corrupt CEOs need to reveal how much they're making compared to workers. The information that's coming in is showing that the problem is much worse than we thought. I have Howard Nations with me now to talk about that. So Howard, finally we're going to get a chance to look a little closer at this pay gap that is, it's sinking democracy. I mean, if you take a look at what any credible economist is saying, this isn't just about inequality. This is sinking capitalism and sinking democracy. That's how serious this is. Tell us what the latest development is.
Well, the SEC passed a new rule that controls publicly traded companies, that they have to reveal the CEO median worker pay ratio. This was passed as part of the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act, and it's only taken the SEC 5 years to implement and create a rule. That's longer than it took to fight World War II. But the employers have latitude in the calculations, which means we're not sure how accurate the information we're going to get is going to be because, as they say, figures don't lie, but liars figure. The exemptions to it are emerging growth companies and small businesses, but it's primarily aimed at the S&P 500. It does not control income. It only makes it transparent to investors, shareholders, and employees. It was voted straight along party lines. It was voted 3-2. Republicans opposing it. The Republican commissioner said it's a blatant attempt to limit executive compensation. That's going overboard a bit, but the union said the idea is to pressure business to limit executive pay. And the progressive study from the Economic Policy Institute gave the example that in 65, the CEO pay was 20 times the employee pay.
You know,
in 2014, it's 305 times the employee pay.
Howard, of course, the numbers that you're speaking about and we'll put this up in the story that Al Jazeera America actually, of all people, of all organizations, probably did the best story reporting this. Al Jazeera having to report on American business. I mean, and they got it right. Tell us a little bit about the players. Mary Jo White. Now, you and I have talked about Mary Jo White in the past. She comes hugely from Wall Street. She is just nothing but just an extension of Wall Street, does everything she can to accommodate Wall Street. This is the reason this has taken so long is she's held it up. I mean, she's one of the people who've held this up, isn't she?
She is, and of course it's ironic now because one of the big complaints of Republicans and the business community is that they're being so very overregulated by the federal government. Yet it took 5 years to actually create this one rule that was passed in 5 years ago in Dodd-Frank. But so there's an example of the quote overregulation end quote.
Well, but Mary Jo White, when she came in there to head up the SEC, we knew what she was going to do. We talked about the fact that this woman is put there to kill Dodd-Frank. And the way she was going to kill Dodd-Frank is to simply not allow anything to happen. So now Mary Jo White is acting like this is some big, it's important, but it should have been done 5 years ago. And the other 18 parts of Dodd-Frank that she has held up, that she's interfered with, should be on the table too. I mean, that's the real story. The Republicans are going crazy about this. Phil Graham's gone nuts about this, hasn't he?
Well, Phil Graham was nuts before he started, but we know Phil Graham well in Texas. He was a senator from Texas, of course. He was an economic professor at Texas A&M University. Phil Graham's claim to fame was that he's the one that taught Rick Perry at Texas A&M. He's the guy that taught Rick Perry how to count to 3. But Graham was one of the architects of the economic collapse policies that happened in 2008. And last week, this shows you how completely out of touch Graham and those who follow the Graham doctrine are. He actually testified last week before the House Financial Services Committee that, I'm going to quote this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want you to hear it. It's the one form of bigotry that is still allowed in America, and that's bigotry against the successful.
Yeah.
I mean, is that out of touch?
He was complaining that the CEO only got a $75 million retirement package. It actually was about $160 million. But Graham was the guy that was saying, poor, pitiful CEO. He only got $160 million in a retirement package. Now, that's how upside down we are with capitalism. That's the problem here, isn't it?
Yeah, he claims that the CEO of AT&T was exploited. It was an outrage that he only got $160 million. Essentially, the Graham doctrine that he's trying to perpetuate is that rich people deserve to be rich because they're valuable. Everyone else has no right to complain because you obviously don't add anything to society. And that the whole economic world, and remember, he was an economics professor, the whole economic world is fair, and the marketplace is what leads to a completely fair distribution of wealth in this country. That's his philosophy.
Let me talk about, just right on this topic, you're seeing more and more writers that are coming up with really good analysis of how the Phil Graham crowd, the 1/2% crowd, that socialism is working very well for them.
Right.
But, they're the people out front that are so critical of Bernie Sanders and socialism. Right. Oh, my God. Socialism works very well for these people. They're the ones who get all the subsidies. They're the ones who get all the breaks on taxes. They're the ones that we allow to get away with basically fraud of every kind, fraud on taxpayers of every kind. And so they're the ones that have benefited the most from socialism. But you're seeing now that they're so terrified that the other 99% of the American public might get some benefits called socialism, that they're equating to communism. And give me your thoughts on this, Howard.
Well, the reason they're so happy with this, quote, socialism is, end quote, is because of the fourth branch of government that they've created, the lobbyists. These folks are represented heavily by lobbyists to get absolutely everything they want out of government. Right now, the way to deal with to deal with inequality is you'd have to restructure the markets, you'd have to enforce the antitrust laws, you'd have to break up monopolies. Look at where we are today. Big energy, big pharma, big everything. Everything is just going right straight into single control. Big banks. We're going to end up with 3 or 4 banks in this whole country. You would have to prosecute predatory financing, which they're not doing, prosecute market manipulate, which they're not doing. And the other option is to redistribute wealth. And of course, the Republicans are against both of these, redistribution of wealth and actually policing the marketplace at all. So it's a ridiculous situation.
Howard, you and I have talked about the fact that it's the new multinational conglomerate that is like a locust moving all over the planet. They used to be that multi-conglomerate moved to South Africa and extracted all their natural resources, South America. Right now, they're right here in New York City and the rest of America, like locusts, extracting what they can in about 30 seconds. Is there a way to turn this around right now?
Well, it's the oligopolies that are now controlling the world, literally, and as we see very well, they're controlling politics, because now the Republicans line up to pay homage to the billionaires, to the Koch brothers, to the people, to this 1/2% at the top. And the only way to turn it around is, first of all, you've got to have a true progressive government. If you have a progressive House, Senate, and executive, you'd have a good chance of turning this around.
We are so far away from that right now, though.
I know.
It's just like we are light years away from that.
And we're moving in the wrong direction, too.
Completely. Howard Nation's always a pleasure. You get more compliments on Free Speech TV than anybody I interview because you always get it right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pap.